evening. I will call to order the meeting of the Chautauqua County Legislature on February 26th, 2025. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony.
Here.
Mr. Bankowski.
Here.
Mr. Buchanan.
Here.
Mr. Carl.
Here.
Mrs. Dickey.
Here.
Mrs. Gustafson.
Here.
Mr. Harmon.
Here.
Mr. Heiser.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Landy.
Present.
Mr. Larson.
Here.
Mr. Nelson.
Here.
Mr. Nebel.
Here.
Mr. Pavlock.
Here.
Mr. Penhallow.
Here.
Mr. Proctor.
Here.
Mr. Scudder is absent. Ms. Vanstrom. Here. Chairman Chagnon.
Here.
There are 18 members present and 1 member absent. There is quorum.
Thank you. We will now have the prayer and pledge of allegiance by Legislator Pavlock.
Before we have our prayer and pledge of allegiance, I'd like to have a moment of silence for a couple of individuals. First being Clyde Dickey. He's the husband of one of our fellow legislators, husband of 21 years to Miss Dickey. And also a moment of silence for Lance Spicer, a former legislator from the Faulkner area. So if you just take a moment and honor them with a moment of silence. Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray to you this evening for just the wonderful blessings that you've instilled upon each of us. We want to thank you for the presence in each of our lives, your hand outreaching to each of us. We want to thank you for the opportunity to serve our constituents, our area. Thank you for promoting us in this position and giving us the knowledge to make decisions wisely. Thank you for giving us wisdom to do what is correct and do what you see fit, Lord. Thank you for providing safety for everyone as they've traveled here, and we ask as a body that you continue to build us as a unit so that we can function as a unit to better our county and our government, Lord. I want to pray for those that are in the front lines each and every day that are protecting us. Just thank you for all that you've done in each of our lives, Lord, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
And now we have approval of the minutes of the January 22nd legislature meeting. I have a motion by Legislator Bankowski and a second by Legislator Gustafson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is carried. They are approved. That brings us to our first privilege of the floor. Members of the public may comment on any subject relating to any local law, resolution, or motion appearing on tonight's agenda. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes, and comments representing a group shall be limited to 5 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to address the first privilege of the floor?
Good evening. My name is James Linden, 55 Castile Drive, Fredonia. On your, it'd be a resolution 6725 to amend the 2025 budget for North County Water District to assist the village of Fredonia. It's for a hydrologic water study, and it's actually not to assist Fredonia. It's actually it's a study provided by the North County Water District. It's not a study directly provided by Fredonia. the North County Water District is providing, they're contracting with Labella Associates. Now, the funding for that, I understand, was originally 20,000 from the ARPA funding that would have had to been earmarked by end of last year. I believe that was earmarked for last year. And I understand by watching the Audit and Control Committee, they said that they were going to utilize the interest from ARPA funding for all of the $70,000, and that would mean that that 20,000 would, because it was earmarked and had to be done by the end of last year, will have to go back to the federal government. Otherwise, because that's what they stated. But anyhow, if not, so be it. But so now you're going to use the interest from ARPA funding. Well, I feel that the interest from ARPA funding is in the general fund to benefit all of the people of the county, not just the certain individuals within the North County Water District that are planning on using it. Now, there was a discussion of whether that money should be a grant or from the ARPA funding utilized that way, or is it going to be a loan from the general fund? And for some reason, when they talked about bringing this forward, that discussion kind of didn't come back up again. I know you talked about it before in previous meetings, but at the time the finance director was not available to answer the question. So now it is forward, and we don't know, is it going to be a loan from the general fund or is it going to be a grant? So those are my questions, and those should be answered prior to voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the first privilege of the floor? Anyone else for the first privilege of the floor? Seeing no one, I will close the first privilege of the floor. Christie?
Now on to our proclamation proclaiming March 17th through the 21st as Agricultural Literacy Week in Chautauqua County by Legislator Tom Nelson, District 13, and Legislator Fred Johnson, District 19.
Legislator Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to point out that during the week of March 17th to the 21st, students across New York State will be learning about the value of agriculture and how it affects their quality of life. Volunteers will be visiting local elementary schools and libraries throughout the week to read a fun and engaging book and complete a related activity to promote agricultural literacy. The book will be donated to the school library for students and teachers to reference throughout the year. This year's book is The Pie That Molly Grew by Sue Havenrich. And I would encourage all of our legislators, and I know our county executive did this last year, to support this and volunteer to go into a school and read to the children. It's a great experience, and just wanted to point that out, that it's a great thing, I think, for our county. So, thank you.
Thank you.
There are no veto messages from County Executive Wendell from the January 22nd, 2025 Legislature meeting. There are 9 communications listed on the agenda. If you would like a copy of any of these items, please let our office know.
Thank you. Now on our agenda, we have time reserved for a public hearing. So I will call to open the public hearing regarding lease of restaurant facilities at Chautauqua County Airport, the JHW Airport, to Basil and Bones Incorporated. The public hearing is open. Is there anyone wishing to address the public hearing? Anyone wishing to address the public hearing? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing.
Renew and amend Resolution Number 177-24, authorize agreement with NY State DOT for performance of federal aid project PIN 5764.85.
Legislator Bankowski.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to renew this.
Okay, we have a motion to renew and a second by Legislator Gustafson. Any discussion? All those in favor of renewing, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is renewed. Legislator Vanstrom. Okay, we have a motion to amend the resolution, second by legislator Nelson. Discussion? All those in favor of amending, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is amended. So now, on to discussion of renewed and amended resolution number 177-24. Is there any discussion on the amended resolution? Legislator Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given what's going on in Washington the last 6 weeks, I'm concerned for the first time in my 40 years of involvement with county government, actually more than that. This says we assume we'll get 95% federal funds for this bridge. And the second resolve says that this legislature authorizes the county of Chautauqua to pay in the first instance 100% of the federal and non-federal shares of the cost of the project. So we will advance $375,000 to do the job and expect the 95% federal reimbursement to come along later. Sadly, we have to consider the possibility that we don't get the whole 95% federal reimbursement based on the way federal monies are being, federal promises of money, employment, whatnot, are being jeopardized at this time. So I don't know if I'm asking us to table this for a month or vote against it, or I'm just pointing out that what we've been able to assume for decades, that if a bridge is eligible for 95% federal money, the federal money will come. I don't think we cannot take that to the bank right now. These issues are going to wind up in the courts, apparently. So just a cautionary note that all of these federal aid resolutions we have this month and the months to come, don't take it to the bank that that money is going to show up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other comments, questions on the amended resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor of amended resolution 177-24, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
One nay. It is carried.
Renew and amend Resolution Number 178-24, authorize agreement with NY State DOT for performance of federal aid project PIN 5764.86.
Legislator Bankowski.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to renew this.
Okay, we have a motion to renew and a second by legislator Gustafson. Discussion? All those in favor of renewing, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is renewed. Legislator Vanstrom. Okay, we have a motion to amend the resolution. Legislator Nelson seconds. So we have a motion and second to amend Resolution 178-24. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is amended. Now on to discuss Resolution 178-24 as amended. Any comments or questions on the amended resolution? Legislator Larson.
Same comment on 178, that we're the bank advancing 100% of the project, hoping the federal funds will come after. The next resolution I'll vote for, it appears that the next resolution, that bridge is 100% state funding. But I'll be voting against 178-24 since we're not sure that the federal funding will really come. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Yes, sir. Legislator Johnson, thank you.
Question of fact. So on these two contracts that Legislator Larson talked about, as we approve them, we're basically signing that we're in agreement with the federal government. To what extent are they nominally on the hook? What I'm getting at is, if they're not, then kind of he's got a point. But if this locks them down and makes it a past thing, we're actually perhaps locking them in a bit. So what I want to know is, where is the federal grant on this? If we take it, at least on paper, we're locked in. If we take it, the ball's back in their court, they can go one way or the other. Which is it?
I'm looking at our parliamentarian, who is our former county attorney, and wondering if he would be willing to share some perspective.
Because if it's one way, we should think of it think of it as risk. The other way, we should jump on it.
What I would say is, I think, first off, that the contracts that we enter into, my recollection would be for these types of projects, even though there's a federal share, it is with the state DOT. It's not a direct contract with the federal government. And I think the state is receiving funds.
Right.
But in any event, it has to be said there's some risk. I mean, but the choice is to postpone or go forward.
Yeah, I mean, you
In
answered.
that, as I think you all are aware, even in the instance where Congress has appropriated the money, there seems to be some question whether and to what extent, those appropriations may or may not be fulfilled.
Sure. But-
I think not necessarily on a legal basis. I think you all would need to decide for yourself. But I think I would just personally say, I mean, you'd hate to see the county's projects suspended or brought to a standstill. But I mean, as Legislator Larson was saying, you need to keep your eye on it, depending on the magnitude of how many of these projects are pending at any given time and the county's own financial health.
Right. Well, I think you answered it when you said this is going through the state, because on one hand, you could get in the queue and then just kind of don't spend the money for a couple of months to see how things fall out, but you're in the queue. The other, to vote against it would be, I'm not going to get in the queue. So that's why I would vote for it, but especially when you say that it's really with the state of New York.
Thank you. Other comments, questions on the renewed and amended resolution? Hearing none. For Resolution 178-24 as amended, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. 1, 2 nays. Mr. Legislator Carl, is that okay? We have 2 nays. Thank you. It is adopted.
Renew and amend Resolution Number 179-24, authorize agreement with New York State DOT for performance of project PIN 5764.99.
Legislator Bankowski.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to renew this.
We have a motion to renew by Legislator Bankowski and second by Legislator Gustafson. All those in favor of renewing Resolution 179-24, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is renewed. Legislator Vanstrom. Okay, we have a motion to amend and a second by Legislator Nelson. Discussion on the motion to amend? Hearing none. All those in favor of amending Resolution 179-24, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is amended. Now for discussion on amended Resolution 179-24. Are there any questions or comments on this resolution as amended? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolutions. Resolutions 27-25, confirm.
Excuse me, Legislator Bankowski.
I'd like to make a motion to block 27-25 through 31-25.
Okay, we have a motion to block resolutions 27 through 31. Is there a second to the motion to block? Legislator Gustafson. Okay, discussion? All those in favor of blocking resolutions 27 through 31, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? They are blocked.
Resolution 27-25, confirm reappointment, Parks Commission. Resolution 28-25, confirm appointment, Chautauqua County Landfill Commission. Resolution 29-25, confirm appointment, Chautauqua County Airport Commission. Resolution 30-25, confirm appointments, Chautauqua County Office for the Aging Advisory Council. Resolution 31-25, confirm reappointment, Chautauqua County Community Service Board.
Are there any comments, questions on any of resolutions 27 through 31? Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the blocked resolutions 27-25 through 31-25, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? They are adopted. Legislator Bankowski.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we block 32-25 through 58-25.
Okay, we have a motion to block and a second by Legislator Gustafson to block resolutions 32-25 through 58-25.
Resolution
Oh,
32,
hold on.
Oh.
Any discussion on the motion to block? Hearing none, all those in favor of blocking the resolutions, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? They are blocked.
Resolution 32-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District. Resolution 33-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, South Chautauqua Lake Sewer District. Resolution 34-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, North County Industrial Sewer District Number 1. Resolution 35-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, North Chautauqua County Water District. Resolution 36-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Portland, Pomfret, Dunkirk Sewer District. Resolution 37-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Environment Landfill. Resolution 38-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, County Attorney. Resolution 39-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, County Clerk. Resolution 40-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, County Executive. Resolution 41-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Human Resources. Resolution 42-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Board of Elections. Resolution 43-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Unified Courts. Resolution 44-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Information Technology. Resolution 45-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, District Attorney. Resolution 46-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Office of the Sheriff. Resolution 47-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Emergency Services. Resolution 48-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Public Health. Resolution 49-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Veterans Service Agency. Resolution 50-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Planning and Economic Development. Resolution 50-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Department of Public Facilities, A Fund. Resolution 52-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Public Facilities, D Fund. Resolution 53-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Public Facilities, DM Fund. Resolution 54-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, Department of Finance and Miscellaneous Department. Resolution 55-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations energy fund. Resolution 56-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations health insurance fund. Resolution 57-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations insurance liability CS fund. Resolution 58-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations workers' compensation fund.
All right, Christie, take a deep breath. So, are there any questions or comments on any of the resolutions 32-25 through 58-25? Any questions or comments on any of the resolutions?
Mr. Chairman,
Legislator Dickey.
thank you. I would like to just compliment the prudent wisdom of this legislature, the county executive. As we said in the committee meetings, you know, we would not be able to, if we had not properly managed fiscally these funds and the fund balance for 2024, we wouldn't have the resources to offset some of these reconciliations. So I wanted to compliment the legislature, the county executive, and the county executive staff after looking at the details of this in the committee meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on any of the resolutions? Legislator Pavlik.
Thank you. Stemming off of what Ms. Dickey had commented on, throughout the committee, we learned that a lot of these year-end reconciliations were due to some vacancy savings that the county had originally had put into the budget. But through the county's ability to retain and hire and fill positions, we weren't able to experience those vacancy savings and had to make such budget adjustments. Most of the time, the departments, through the fiscal responsibility of the department heads, were able to balance within their budget. There are some that we did have to utilize fund balance. As Ms. Dickey commented, we were able to have a fund balance to cover some over expenditures. But just something moving forward that we should consider watching is our vacancy savings. But it's a good thing because it means that we are hiring and retaining those positions, and we aren't experiencing those vacancies. So,
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the resolutions? Hearing none, all those in favor of Resolution 32-25 through 58-25, please say aye. Aye. And any opposed? They are all carried. Legislator Bankowski.
Yeah, since Mrs. Zink did such a fine job on these first two blocks, I'd like to block 59-25 through 68-25.
So we have a resolution to block by Block and Bob, and a second by Legislator Gustafson. Discussion on the motion to block. All those in favor of blocking Resolution 59-25 through 68-25, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? They are blocked.
Resolution 59-25, amend 2025 budget, occupancy tax funded projects. Resolution 60-25, amend 2025 budget to replenish the lake maintenance fund. Resolution 61-25, amend 2025 budget for purchase of van for meal delivery for the elderly. Resolution 62-25, amend 2025 budget for Portland, Pomfret, Dunkirk Sewer District. Resolution 63-25, amend 2025 budget for Office of the Sheriff. Resolution 64-25, amend OES 2025 budget for FY 2021 Hazmat Grant FY 21 HM. Resolution 65-25, amend OES 2025 budget for FY 2022 Hazmat Grant FY 22 HM. Resolution 66-25, amend 2025 OES budget for FY 2022 SHSP grant SHSP 22. Resolution 67-25, amend 2025 budget for NCCWD to assist the Village of Fredonia using interest earnings from American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. Resolution 68-25, amend 2025 budget to implement the GOB security project using interest earnings from American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA.
Are there any questions or comments on any of the resolutions 59-25 through 68-25? Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the blocked resolutions 59-25 through 68-25, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? They are carried.
Resolution 69-25, authorize acceptance of a 2024 general election grant for Board of Elections.
Any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 70-25, authorize acceptance of ballot by mail grant for Board of Election.
Any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 71-25, authorize acceptance of a electric poll book grant for Board of Elections.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 72-25, authorize acceptance of lead hazard reductions grant, FY 2024.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 73-25, authorize extension of the amended Technology Innovations and Election Resource Grant Award from the New York State Board of Elections.
Are there any questions, comments, discussion on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 74-25, authorize lease agreement with SUNY Fredonia for 2025 Senior Expo event.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 75-25, authorizing lease agreement with the Village of Mayville for office space for the Office of the Sheriff.
Any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 76-25, authorize lease agreement of restaurant facilities at Chautauqua County Airport, JHW to Basil and Bones, Inc.
Are there any comments or discussion on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 77-25, authorize amendment of lease agreement with the City of Dunkirk to increase office space for the Office of Chautauqua County Public Defender.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 78-25, authorize equitable sharing agreement with the federal government, Office of the Sheriff.
Any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 79-25, authorize equitable sharing agreement with the federal government, District Attorney's Office.
Any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 80-25, CARTS, Section 5311, Consolidation, Operating and Capital Grant Application Request.
Any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 81-25, renew authorization for grant applications and agreements with New York State for household hazardous waste programs.
Are there any questions or any comments on the resolution? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 82-25, New York State Office of Mental Health, additional funding to 2025 state aid.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 83-25, authorizing flood mitigation project memorandum of understanding MOU with Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, DHSES.
Are there any questions, any comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 84-25, authorize execution of NYS Office of Homeland Security statewide interoperable communications SICG grant program FY24.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 85-25, authorize execution of NYS Office of Homeland Security Public Safety Answering Point PSAP grant FY24.
Any comments, any questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 86-25, authorize acceptance of funds from the Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance for the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program, SCAAP, for FY 2024.
Any comments, questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 87-25, calling a public hearing pursuant to County Law 254 upon a proposal to extend the Center Chautauqua Lake Sewer District from Midway State Park through Point Chautauqua on the east side of Chautauqua Lake.
Are there any comments or any questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 88-25, recommendation to progress the Center Chautauqua Lake Sewer District Extension Phase 3 project and establish Chautauqua County as lead agency.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 89-25, close capital projects 2024 year-end reconciliation.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 90-25, requesting continuation of state legislation authorizing 1% additional sales tax.
Are there any comments or any questions on the resolution? Legislator Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this resolution is really about is every 2 years, apparently, the county legislature decides whether to ask the state legislature to allow us to go above the original 7% sales tax rate. This county was at 7% sales tax rate, 4% state, 3% county, from the start of the sales tax in 1968 for at least 30 years. My first 8 years on this legislature, 85 to 93, we had a 7% sales tax rate. At various times, the sales tax in Chautauqua County has been 7.5%, and I understand at some point 7.75%. The allocation of the extra money above the 7% basic rate has also varied from time to time. The proposal tonight has the extra 1% divided 85% to the county government, only 15% to the cities, towns, and villages of Chautauqua County. Putting this in perspective, prior to 2005, Chautauqua County, and not the cities, towns, and villages, paid about 25% of Medicaid. the program in New York State was 50% federal, 25% state, and 25% county. That was capped around 2005, the county's share, that is. Secondly, going back to that era, the county owned a money-losing nursing home. Obviously, well, not obviously, but cities, towns, and villages had no such liability. Only the county had a money-losing nursing home. Those circumstances have changed in the years since. In 2005, again, the state capped the county's share of Medicaid. No longer did we have multi-million-dollar increases in our share of Medicaid from year to year. In 2014, the county sold its money-losing nursing home. Some of you know I was the deciding vote, the 2/3 vote to sell that home. So maybe there's no longer a justification for 85% of this 1% going to the county and only 15% to our towns, villages, and cities. The county has about a $40 million slush fund or unappropriated fund balance at this time. Our own policy says that something around 15 million would be an acceptable baseline amount. A number of our municipalities are in deep financial trouble. A number of our municipalities are not looking at their huge fund balances. They're looking at a very, very difficult financial picture. Some of it may be their own fault, some of it may not. Be that as it may, we know some of our municipalities are in deep financial trouble. Maybe the county could make do with 75% of the extra sales tax money and have the cities, towns, and villages at 25%. Maybe it could be 50-50, maybe 60-40. I don't believe the Audit and Control Committee had any discussion about the rationale for the whole 1%, first of all. Secondly, I doubt there was any discussion about why is it 85-15? Is that an appropriate split under current financial circumstances with the county versus our municipalities? Furthermore, there's nothing that the state says you either have a 7% sales tax or this extra 1% for 8. We've had in the past 7.5, and I believe there was a time we had 7 3/4. This is our request for extra sales tax percentages. It's up to us to decide what we want to ask for. We could, for example, ask to be at 7 3/4. We could hold our cities, towns, and villages harmless by giving them 20% of the 3/4 rather than 15% of the 1%. Maybe if the county did not have all of this money flowing in from the extra 1% sales tax, maybe the county workforce would not have grown from about 1,000 people after we sold the county home and reduced our workforce from 1,200 down to 1,000. And now we're back over 1,200 county employees. Maybe if money didn't flow so easily, maybe we'd be at 1,100 employees. I'm not going to sit here and say that there haven't been good justifications for growing the workforce from 1,000 to something bigger, but it's hard to believe that a 20% growth in our workforce the last 9 years, 10 years, was absolutely critically essential. It just seems like there's so much money flowing that hard decisions are not made necessarily. By the way, if we had 1,100 employees instead of 1,200, 100 employees at even $75,000 a year with the wage, the New York State retirement, the county health insurance, Medicare, Social Security, disability, unemployment, workers' comp, our payroll would be $7,500,000 less than it is. To me, easy money avoids making hard decisions. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that the Audit and Control Committee did not discuss the rationale for the continued 1% or the rationale of 85% county and only 15% to our municipalities. So, knowing that the state legislature is in session at least through May, there's time to refer this resolution back to the Audit and Control Committee for input by our cities, towns, and villages. Going out on a limb, I don't know how many, I doubt that a lot of our 27 town supervisors, 2 mayors of cities, we still have 15 villages, something like that. I doubt that all of these mayors and supervisors are aware that this resolution is invented by this body. It's not handed down from the state. And I think that in fairness, the leaders of our cities, towns, and villages ought to have a chance to have some input on whether they think 85% of this money to the county and only 15% to them is the right way to go. So I move to refer this resolution back to the Audit and Control Committee for input by the locally elected officials and to explore the rationale for, first of all, continuing at 1% instead of something less, and the rationale of the 85-15 split. So I'd make that motion to refer back to Audit and Control. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we have a motion to refer this resolution back to the Audit and Control Committee by Legislator Larson. Do we have a second? I'll second. Legislator Nelson makes the second. Okay, discussion on the motion to refer this resolution back to the Audit and Control Committee. Legislator Johnson.
So, question, if Mr. Larson is right that we have time to consider this, then I would support that measure. If we don't particularly, then I would not.
We have time, right? In conferencing with our parliamentarian, he agrees that we would have time for 1 more month with this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Legislator Buchanan.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I also support that. If we have time, I think we should relook at this. You know, this can turn out to be pretty good for the whole county, other villages and cities and towns. You know, 75% sound pretty nice. So if we can take time and talk about this, it can benefit. It can probably work out nice if everyone else is on board. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions on the motion to refer? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony?
No.
Mr. Bankowski?
Yes.
Mr. Buchanan?
Yes.
Mr. Carl?
Yes.
Mrs. Dickey?
Yes.
Mrs. Gustafson?
No.
Mr. Harmon?
No.
Mr. Heiser?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Landy?
Yes.
Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Nebel?
No.
Mr. Pavlock?
Yes.
Mr. Penhallow?
No.
Mr. Proctor?
Yes.
Mr. Scudder is absent. Ms. Vanstrom?
No.
Chairman Chagnon?
Yes.
There are 11 yes votes and 7 no votes. The resolution gets referred back to committee.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to announcements. Are there any announcements for the good of the order from any legislator? Any legislators with announcements this evening? No announcements. A lot of spring fever in the room. Legislator Johnson.
A brief question, not an announcement. earlier at the privilege of the floor, there was a question about whether that was a grant or a loan to the North County Water District. And I don't think he was provided with an answer for the people who are not here, or the people like me who are not quite sure. Is there an answer?
It is a grant.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Any announcements? Seeing no announcements this evening, we will move to the second privilege of the floor. Members of the public may comment on any subject. A member of the legislature may speak on any subject. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes, and comments representing a group shall be limited to 5 minutes. Looks like Mr. Jablonski would like to be our first speaker for the second privilege of the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Shagnon. Dear County Legislators and Executive Wendell, I am John Jablonski of 213 Spruce Street, Lakewood. I come here tonight to respectfully request that you get involved in asking Congressman Langworthy to advocate for the best interests of county residents, families, businesses, school districts, and taxpayers to fight cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security that will threaten the well-being, health, and economic stability of thousands of families across the county and across our congressional district. We ask you to urge him to fight cuts to the SNAP Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which helps feed thousands of families and children in our county, which, if enacted, will disproportionately harm approximately 11,450 people in Chautauqua County. We ask you to help maintain the Department of Education and its programs that especially support poor school districts and special education programs like the Jamestown, Dunkirk districts, and districts in the rural areas of our region. Our communities cannot afford to shortchange the education of our children into productive citizens and future parents. If proposed agency cuts and budget actions are enacted as proposed by the Republican Trump-Musk-Vance administration and Republican Congress, these will have negative multiplier effects on businesses, healthcare providers, and nursing homes across our county. Additionally, we cannot risk having our precarious healthcare and nursing home provider systems dealt more economic blows. You, as our representatives, may want to ask how many hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars will not be coming to Chautauqua County and not coming to which organizations before the House and Senate negotiate a reconciliation budget bill. I implore you to please work with Congressman Langworthy and the Republican administration to prevent actions which will lead to the destabilization of our county families, education systems, healthcare systems, and local economy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have copies of that for all the legislators. If I can hand them to the clerk or however you want me to pass those out.
Give them to the clerk, please. Thank you. Next, for the second privilege of the floor.
My name is Edward Voss. I live at 33 Clyde Avenue, Jamestown, New York. I'm here to raise an issue on two topics, immigration and homelessness. But first, we need to get our bases covered. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance and say we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, what does that mean? If we are one nation under God, then the executive orders from God, and not Trump, should be our priority. Case in point, Leviticus. Leviticus 19:33 through 34. When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord, your God. Therefore, all immigrants must be treated as innocent until proven guilty, like we all are. Immigrants are not felons or criminals until they are proven guilty. The only reason immigrants are illegal is because we have not done the vetting to make them legal. We are at fault for making them illegal, not them. Note, however, that the most important executive order from God says that we are to love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and our neighbor as ourselves. So when it comes to the homeless neighbors, do we love them as our neighbor? Do we treat the homeless with respect like we would a car dealership manager? If we budget for snow removal in the wintertime, we should budget for the homeless people to have shelter and homes in the wintertime? What should our vision for the homeless people in Chautauqua and Jamestown be during the wintertime? As for legal immigrants and refugees of the county, we should welcome them with open arms and do everything possible to accept them into our community. Note, these executive orders from God are not negotiable. Unless, of course, we change the Pledge of Allegiance and say we are not one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. By the way, what does the all represent? Only U.S. citizens or everybody? Let me be crystal clear. We are either a Christian nation and choose to follow the executive orders of God or not. We must realize that God may choose to treat us the same way we treat our neighbors. God may even treat us as illegal aliens in heaven if we don't follow his executive orders. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is for the second privilege of the floor.
Hello, everybody. My name is Josie Laurie, and I am a 4-H educator with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Chautauqua, and I am the one that coordinates the Agriculture Literacy Week program. I would like to thank Mr. Fred Johnson and Mr. Tom Nelson for recognizing the proclamation earlier today, and for their great explanation of the program. I would also like to thank everybody in Chautauqua County government that has already gotten involved with the program in past years as well as this year. I would just like to say that I highly encourage you all to participate in the program. We have almost every public school signed up for the program in the county, as well as some private schools. I have sign-up forms back here with me, and I will be putting flyers in all of your mailboxes. Most likely I'll give them with the clerk to put in your mailboxes with my contact information if you'd like to get involved. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next for the second privilege of the floor.
Good evening, Sheriff Jim Quattrone. Tonight I'd like to address the legislative body regarding the current travesty, also known as the New York State Corrections Officer strike. This is a situation that is entirely preventable. Why am I speaking on this issue, since it involves state corrections and not the county jail? This situation and its causes have a direct impact on the county jail. We are unable to transfer our state-ready incarcerated individuals to state facilities. That's an order we've received that is standing until at least March 17th. Many of our food items we receive from State Department of Corrections. We are not able to get them now. And we've had county employees, specifically from the jail, that have been activated to the National Guard to work in our state prisons. Now, why or how has the state allowed this situation to continue? Why are the officers on strike? This also directly impacts county jails. The HALT Act, or the Human Alternatives to Long-Term Solitary Confinement, an act that was put in place to protect inmates, and I'm entirely in favor of that. However, they didn't follow through to see how does it impact. When we look at, since the HALT Act has been impacted, we've seen an increase of over 100% of inmate assaults, an increase of about 75% of inmate on staff assaults. We've seen excessive forced overtime. Some of these COs have been forced to work 24 hours or even 32 hours straight. That is a danger, probably a few violations of the labor law, but anytime somebody's been forced to stay awake that long, it's a danger not just for the COs, but for those that are incarcerated, which further causes staffing shortages. Why would anybody want to work at the state prison system? I had the opportunity to be in Albany yesterday, speaking with some senators, some congressmen, the Deputy Secretary of Criminal Justice for the governor, and with other sheriffs. Chautauqua County Jail, of the group that was there, is the only one that's fully staffed. So it was hard for me to talk a little bit about that, but I believe that's because of this legislative body showing the support of our corrections officer in many ways, the visits, the votes on the contracts. That's much appreciated and goes a long ways. This is what we're asking for our state legislature, for our state governor to continue to do, show support for our corrections officers. The solutions, they've been put in front of state legislators, the governor. We've explained. This isn't something that's happened, as I've heard from some people say, it's a result of the indictments coming out from the Marcy incident, which there was absolutely no excuse for. They should be indicted, they should be held accountable. But this has nothing to do with that. This has something to do with, for years, the state COs sharing with our leaders the problems. The state solution that they're proposing is to transfer state incarcerated individuals to county jails. Some counties are going to do that. Some counties are going to accept that. My stance is we will not be accepting state inmates to Chautauqua County Jail for multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is I'm afraid if we do that, that will encourage the state to do nothing and let this continue on. So I'm reaching out to the legislative body to continue to support our state corrections officers, to reach out to our state lawmakers and encourage a quick remedy to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, second privilege of the floor.
Good evening, County Executive Wendell, 3 North Erie Street here in Mayville. I will echo what the sheriff said. I apologize for my attire as I just stopped at the Lakeview facility. We need, and I'm asking this body to pen a letter, an emotion. I'm sure it'll be pontificated that emotion doesn't do much, but I would disagree. The New York State Association of Counties, where I just left, is in support of the governor coming to a remedy to this situation. This is within her power. The New York State County Executives Association had the same position. This is born on the leadership in Albany on the second floor. It needs to be resolved. Statements coming out of the second floor was there were 4 regions and 4 different demands from the corrections officers. It's incorrect. It's one demand. Staffing levels, the HALT Act is a concern, but right now Lakeview Shock Incarceration is supposed to have 308 COs. The state feels in its power it should be reduced to 211. Mind you, they are not reducing the inmate population or incarcerated individuals. We've had prisons overtaken by inmates. Currently, one is happening right now, and the state is responding. This is a problem. Rome is burning, and our governor needs to address it. This has bipartisan support from the County Executives Association. Likewise, we're looking for bipartisan support from the New York State Association of Counties. So I ask this legislative body this evening to vote on penning a letter in a motion urging the governor to please come to the table and remedy the solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Bankowski.
Mr. Chairman, I want to chime in here. I wear 2 hats. I have worn 2 hats in this whole strike. Serving 20 years in the military, did spend some time as a National Guardsman, and then 26 years as a correction officer. Right now, we have 66,500 National Guardsmen have been activated to help with the staffing shortages at the prisons due to the strike. These people are not trained to be a correction officer. These people are men and women that are mechanics, truck drivers, communication specialists, carpenters, pilots, nurses. Myself, I was a combat engineer. I built bridges and built roads. What knowledge or expertise do I have sitting inside of a correctional facility trying to do a job that when I was a correction officer, it took me 8 weeks of intense training to be certified to do that job. And we have 6,500 National Guardsmen who are just pulled off the street that have no expertise or even doing any of those jobs. It's a very volatile situation. I mean, something could go wrong, and it usually does, and somebody could get hurt or get killed. And it's sad that we're at this point of this strike. It's going on a week now that these people are working these jobs and have not a clue on what to do. And it's not their fault. They got that's what you signed up for. You know, most of the time it's because if it's a natural disaster, snowstorm or a flood or something, where you can actually go and help people. Right now, with these guardsmen sitting in a prison watching a security block, you know, I'm sure that it's very uncomfortable for them, but they're just doing what they're told to do. Then my other hat, you know, being a correction officer, I spent the majority of my time at Lakeview Correctional Facility, and the things that these guys are asking for, these things have been going on for 2 years. I mean, like the county executive said, we should have 300 officers there. It's 70% staffed, and with 30% of the people, nobody wants the job. It's not the money. These guys make $100,000 a year with the overtime that they're forced to work. So it's not the money. They all have money. They all have nice vehicles to drive. You go by the parking lot, you see all the nice trucks. But they live at the jail. They don't see their family. They don't go to their kids' concerts or ball games or whatever. When you know you got to go to work, plan on being there for at least 16 hours, sometimes 24 hours. And how can you actually function by being there working those long hours? It's totally ridiculous. This HALT Act, you know, these things are designed, or they come as a brainchild from some people in Albany that have no clue on working in a prison or running a prison. They come up with these ideas. So now the HALT Act, an inmate stabs another inmate, and he goes into special housing unit for 3 days, and then he comes back out like nothing's done. The next day, they throw feces on an officer or throw urine on them or something disgusting as that. 3 days in S block again, and then they come back out. It's not working, and the officers have been saying this for 2 years. You're taking away my tools for me to do my job. If somebody got stabbed or something like that in the past, you'd be locked up for 90, 180 days. You might even get charged with another felony for assaulting somebody, besides doing things to staff. You know, I can go on, and I got a lot of stories, but I don't want to tell them because they're horrific, and, you know, they're not good. They're not happy stories. So in support of what the sheriff has said and the county executive, I'm all for being the front man to put this, pen a letter and sending it to the governor. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Buchanan.
Thank you. I also stand with the COs, and not because I'm a dad of a correction officer. I actually went out there myself and sat hours with them. And when I first came up, they wasn't too fond of me. They thought I was from New York State, and they was asking me, "What can you do? You're from the county." And some folks say, "Marcus, you can't do much. It's a state issue." You know, but I feel like we can do something. As a legislative body, I felt like we should all come together. I did request to see if I can go into some of the prisons and do a walkthrough, and I invited some of my legislative friends here. They haven't got back with me, but I hear everything they're saying. The county executive, the sheriff, Bob. It's true. I've been hearing these stories for years, and the safety is the number one thing that means a lot to me. Is these CEOs' safety, and they got families, and they said it's not about the money. Correct. They said, we'll take a janitor job before we go back into that place. This is what they tell me at Lakeview. So I'm not sure if it's a wise thing to do as a legislator. Can we request for a walkthrough just to see how the conditions are in there? And I would love to all come together, and I'll support this letter. You know, and Let's just do this we owe this. I feel like I owe this to these hardworking CEOs. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, we've had perspective tonight from the county sheriff, from the county executive, from a county legislator that has a deep understanding of state corrections and National Guard work. So we haven't heard from someone who was a judge. Now we will. You can be sympathetic to everything that's been said tonight. You can acknowledge frustration by public employees and their union representatives. But ever since 1967, New York State adopted what we call the Taylor Law. We are probably in the minority in the 50 states now, where we require the state itself, we require Chautauqua County, we require school districts to honor public employee union creation. We are required to negotiate in good faith. Under the Taylor Law, all of these rights were given to public employees, including the right to mediation for all employees in their unions, and a right to binding arbitration for police and fire in New York State. In return for all of those rights given to public employees and their unions, there was one requirement: no strikes. Striking is illegal and has been ever since 1967. How would you feel if during this miserable winter of January, February, our DPF snowplow drivers said, we've had grievances with you, the County of Chautauqua, for 2-3 years. You won't change your practices, you won't change your overtime rules, you won't change anything we're demanding, so we're on strike, and nobody's plowing our roads. I'm a little concerned that so many elected officials going on television, Buffalo TV, we're in support of the corrections officers. Well, okay. I haven't, maybe I missed it, but I haven't heard lawmakers, when a state assemblyman or a state senator gets on TV and says, I support these corrections officers, you've got your lawmakers saying breaking the law is no problem. We have a challenge in our country right now of convincing people that we're a country of laws and not of men. And so any public employee, our DPF snowplow drivers could be doing informational picketing here tonight. That's perfectly fine on their own time. But walking off the job is an illegal strike. And that should not be overlooked, no matter how sympathetic might be to the working conditions of corrections officers across New York State. So just a perspective from a former judge, breaking the law should not be easily ignored or dismissed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Legislator Johnson.
Briefly, he reminds me of a fellow by the name of Drew Lewis. Does anybody remember who Drew Lewis was? He was the Secretary of Aviation, FAA, when the controllers went on strike. What did his boss, Ronald Reagan, do?
Fired them all.
Because that was an illegal strike. So to your point. However, I would support a letter in support of getting the state government to obey its own labor laws. And that might fix most of the problem.
Thank you. Anyone else for the second privilege of the floor? Please.
Castile Drive, Fredonia. I was here to this legislature last fall, or before the end of the last year, and I was assured that the funding that was taken from the general fund of the county to the North County Water District, there was monies that were of more than $5 million would be returned. Forgive me if I've missed that return, but I didn't see a transfer of more than $5 million back to the general fund. That was required by the comptroller, and I would suspect that it should have been done, and they assured me it would take place. I didn't see that happen. Now, another subject. Now, tonight's resolution that passed that had to do with the study, it had to do with a hydraulic study that would be performed so they could have a idea of how they can connect to Fredonia with the North County Water District. It's not whether they can develop a connection. Of course, any engineering company can. It's not whether they can, it's whether they should. That's the question. Now, what's really important here to know is that the county has been under a contract with the Village of Fredonia for the emergency connections and safety and welfare of the village for some time now. And those connections fail to work. I've notified this board, and the county's well aware of it, that they don't function to help Fredonia. They only function to help the North County Water District. The Fredonia can actually save them, but the county can't save Fredonia. There's been incidences since this contract numerous times that I'm sure the county is aware of, that they could have helped Fredonia, but the system doesn't work. They failed to make it. And it appears to be, with this study, where they're trying to move forward with taking over the sales of the water in Fredonia, that has now become an intentional neglect. And I'm sorry to have to say it that way, but this is an awful appearance, because all it would take would be a booster pump to get that water to move into Fredonia for their emergency needs. But we've had emergencies, and that contracted already, there's been years since that contract has been in place, and they fail. This is not acceptable. So I urge you to not to go through with a connection to take over our water system, to take over our revenues. Those supply ample revenues for the village. What it will happen is it's going to cost us it's going to be more than the double the cost of the water to the Village of Fredonia residents if we go through with this pumping the water up from Dunkirk up into Fredonia. Yes, of course you could design it. Of course you can. You could design it for any city. But that's not the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor?
Karen Engstrom, Town of Chautauqua. This is your February update on the bad energy policies from New York State, brought to you by the Chautauqua Energy Watch and Stop Energy Sprawl. There was a public hearing this week in the town of Hanover regarding the 250 megawatt Northland Power Ball Hill battery energy storage system. More than 75 residents attended that public hearing, including legislator Mark Harmon. Most expressed their opposition to the project because of their concerns for the health and safety of their community. At the 3-hour hearing, residents showed their concerns because of the many recent thermal runaway fires and toxic gas plumes occurring at battery energy storage facilities in New York, Arizona, California, and elsewhere. Residents cited the Moss Landing, California thermal runaway fire, noting that that fire has burned for 1 month. One former Hanover firefighter said, and I quote, "Bess have a bad reputation and a bad track record. The developer is just crossing their fingers. Consider the toxicity of hydrofluoric acid, which is emitted during a thermal runaway fire. Monterey Bay residents are suffering chemical burns to skin, eyes, lungs, nasal passages, shelter in place, and evacuations as a result of the Moss Landing fire. Hanover residents who spoke live in close proximity to the proposed facility. Their children go to school nearby, and the evacuation route from the school is the very road on which the facility would be located." Among the speakers to the town board was a high school student by the name of Molly Shaw. She said, and I quote, "I go to Silver Creek High School. My brother and sister do too. My home is about one quarter mile away. I am on the cross-country running team. I run and train there. I attended the last town board meeting where you said that you value the future of Silver Creek and that you wanted our input. It is important to me to come tonight and give you my input." Molly continued, "I do not feel safe. I think it is not a good idea to put this so close to so many important things." Many residents described their bad experience of living across from the solar projects and wind turbines installed in Hanover. They asked, quote, "What have been the benefits to the town?" And further say, "We have to look at these monstrosities every day. We pay higher utility rates and higher taxes, and our property values have dropped. We have not benefited." They cited the lack of a New York State emergency preparedness plan for residents near energy storage systems. Hanover Supervisor Lou Pelletier expressed his concern for the potential danger, citing his experience fighting chemical spills, evacuation, contamination, to which he has responded over the years as a first responder in Hanover. Trustee Bernard Feldman Jr. said, "What are we looking at regarding safety concerns regarding EMS? The school is so close. What if there were more than one fire call? Then what? As a first responder, this is a concern. The Moss Landing is still burning 1 month later, and the fires in New York have all been 4, 5, and 6 days, and in Chaumont, New York, it took 300 firefighters, all the water in the town, and the entire budget of the fire department." One resident asked, quote, "Where does the $270,000 payment to the town come from?" Northland Power answered, "It comes directly from the state." And she then said, "That's our tax money. So is the pilot that will be given from the local incentives. That's our tax money." She also pointed out that Northland Power hired out-of-town workers to build their Ball Hill wind. And it was Northland that had to dynamite the faulty turbine bases and start over in Villanova. Data was provided to the board and will be to you tonight via email from 5 scientific studies which proved the poor safety record of lithium battery energy storage systems. The study's summary was compiled by energy expert Dr. Calvin Martin, and the link is forthcoming. I think we can all agree with high school student Molly Shaw. It is not a good idea to put this battery energy storage systems so close to so many important things. When on-demand electricity production is reestablished, hydro, SMRs, advanced dual-cycle gas, there will be no justification for dangerous, expensive, short-lived BESS. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor?
Good evening. Good long evening. Anyway, I am Dan Smith. I'm Secretary Treasurer of the Chautauqua Lake Property Owners Association, better known as CLPOA. First, wetlands. We began alerting all to the significant negative impacts of the New York State DEC's proposed new wetlands regulations in August of 2023. CLPOA has now conducted 8 very well-attended wetlands public meetings between April and January, last January 2025, with another to be held Saturday, March 15th, 2025. We encourage your attendance to learn additional details about wetlands' negative impacts. Nonprofit lake organizations, including the Chautauqua Lake Property Owners Association, and thousands of individuals provided detailed written comments from their boards or their paid legal counsel to the DEC and Governor Hochul about the draft regulations' serious impacts to Chautauqua County. Unfortunately for taxpayers, the Chautauqua the county legislature and county executive, with a well-staffed legal department, fail to provide such comments, as well as failing to represent its constituents' interests. What a missed opportunity, and we'll never know whether that lack of county support contributed to the governor's decision to go forward with the January 1st implementation. The final DEC regulations are seriously flawed. They are making piecemeal additions of so-called still discretionary general permits, Band-Aids attempting to patch up the flawed regulations, continue to be added. Will you comment on these? An understanding of negative impacts is evolving, but it is clear that hundreds of homes and businesses near Chautauqua Lake and more around the entire county will find themselves in newly regulated wetlands areas. In fact, the DEC is so sure of this impact that it has published a document acknowledging loss of individual property value and recommending property owners to have dialogue with municipalities for ways to reduce their taxable value assessments to prevent being unfairly overtaxed. That's the DEC making that recommendation. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, given the DEC's jurisdictional determination process and identification of in-lake wetlands still to come. Will our county step up this time to represent their constituents and the taxpayers? Second, a centralized lake authority. Courageous and skilled politicians, Town Supervisor Dale Robbins in 2003 and 4, and County Executive George Borrello in 2019 and 20, attempted to create a centralized lake authority of elected and easily accessible board members. The town of Chautauqua solely prevented formation of this Dale Robbins-led effort in 2004. George Borrello's successor failed to act after replacement in late 2019. Perhaps it was just too much of a difficult undertaking. It's hard to believe that the Chautauqua County can't find the necessary leadership and push for such an undertaking from our elected representatives. Third, lake management. You have an opportunity to support the long-term management plan for submerged aquatic vegetation at Chautauqua Lake, completed by the North Carolina State University Aquatic Plant Management Team in June of 2024. The plan is a comprehensive, adaptive management plan with an annual upgrade with quantitative performance measures and learnings. The lack of leadership and support of the use of this excellent plan with its high quality acknowledged by DEC and New York State Lake Associations is highly questionable. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Legislator Proctor.
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn by Legislator Proctor and a second by Legislator Nelson.
No, I have something for the privilege of the floor.
Oh, okay. So we have no second to the motion, so Legislator Nelson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know it's getting late, but there are many here in our county, some of them are here tonight, including myself, who are worried about what some would call a constitutional crisis. I spent almost 40 years teaching high school classes in U.S. history and government, and every one of those classes included a unit on the basic principles of the Constitution. The basic principles of the Constitution include separation of powers, checks and balances, federalism, or the division of power between the state and national government, and judicial review. The people are the source of the government's power, and that power was limited. There was respect for the rule of law and a belief in individual rights. We were a nation of rules, not rulers, and no one was above the law. On January 20th, 2025, Donald Trump took the oath of office and swore to faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States and to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend that Constitution and those basic principles. The Constitution that he swore to protect and defend is a flexible document and has been changed or amended 27 times in our nation's history. The genius of the Constitution is its ability to change with changing times. When it was written in 1787, France was ruled by a king, China by an emperor, Russia by a czar, and Japan by a shogun. All of those regimes are long gone, but our government has stood the test of time largely because of its flexibility. Article 5 of the Constitution specifically states that the process for amending the Constitution. 2/3 of Congress is required to propose an amendment, and it must be ratified by 38 of the 50 states. The process can be challenging, but certainly not impossible. I would argue that our Constitution is flexible, but not flimsy. Nowhere in Article 5 does it mention the President. The President may use his influence to support or oppose an amendment, but they have no vote or authority over it according to the Constitution. On his first day in office, President Trump signed an executive order attempting to end birthright citizenship in the U.S. for children born in the U.S. to non-citizen parents and undocumented immigrants. The President's order would also extend to parents in the country legally but temporarily, like foreign students, workers, or tourists. Birthright citizenship is a right guaranteed by the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. This cannot be changed by an executive order of the President. It may be changed by amending the Constitution using the process I mentioned above. I don't believe President Trump is misinformed or mistaken or ignorant about this, but he hopes that you are. He hopes the American public will not care or be too busy to care or not understand that the President is not able to make unilateral changes to the Constitution through executive orders. A federal judge has ruled in the case that Trump's executive order is blatantly unconstitutional, siding temporarily with 4 states that sued: Arizona, Illinois, Oregon, and Washington. A group of House Republicans filed a brief using case law from the 1600s to defend President Trump's efforts. And we'll see how this plays out in the courts. During his first term in office, President Trump filed 220 executive orders. In his first week in office, he signed 36, and currently he is up to 73. This is undemocratic. This is not the system of checks and balances and separation of powers that form the basic principles of the Constitution. It's not what I taught for 40 years. Whatever happened to the process of a bill working its way through the 2 houses of Congress and then signed or vetoed by the President? Under our system of representative democracy, a person could contact their congressman and voice their opinion. Under that system, people had the opportunity to participate in government. It's been said that democracy is the worst form of government there is, except for all the others. No one pretends that democracy is perfect. It can be slow, it can be tedious, including lengthy debate and discussion, long nights like tonight, but it is still better than a system where presidents sign one executive order after another without the consent of the people or of Congress. Our president should remember the oath that he took on January 20th and protect and defend the Constitution as it is written. If he wants to make changes in birthright citizenship or any other part of the Constitution, then he should do so through the process written in Article 5. Now, if all of this is unfamiliar to you, you should start to question where you're getting your news and look for possible additional sources of information. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Legislator Proctor. We have a motion to adjourn, a second by Legislator Vanstrom. All those in favor, please say aye. And we're adjourned.